Everyone, welcome back to the Adult Learner Lounge. But before I go in with my usual greeting, let me just say that we here at the Adult Learner Lounge are actually closed. Okay. Um, Let me just explain. If this were normal circumstances, that I'll be welcoming you to the Adult Learner Lounge like normal, I would be setting the mood by letting everyone know what we're listening to and letting you know what I'm sipping on and asking for you to share with me in the comment section what you're sipping on. However, this video is a little bit of a after hours, like a special video for the most part, right? Um, so therefore, the best way I can describe it or equate it is that maybe you are still in the lounge after closing hours, right? Some of us are working, cleaning up so we can shut down and close out and go home. I'm in the office, maybe trying to settle up for the night so we can close out and go home, right? Maybe you just are waiting for a ride or something. So technically, we are closed, okay? But I want to jump on anyway. I had an idea or a thought because um, in the previous video for last week, it was a lot of information. It was a very long video, but the end of that video, I talked about some actionable options or steps that you can take, like recommendations, basically. And I wanted to what I wanted to do, or what I'm doing now, as a matter of fact, what I am going to do is that in light of some of the recent developments with the Trump administration and the Department of Education, I thought it would be very relevant and timely at this point to kind of revisit some of those recommendations and actionable steps that you can take. So, because of this, at first I was going to just kind of repurpose that section of last week's video and repost it as a separate video. But because of everything that's been happening, and I didn't, address it then because it had not happened yet. I thought, you know what, let me just go ahead and go over this and revisit this again, but update the audio and include the updates and the current information that we now have. Okay. So we're working with something a little bit more definitive in regards to this administration and the Department of Education. All right. So some of the big things that have happened since the last video that I posted was that one, um, and I think I did talk about this, but the secretary for the Department of Education, I think, is Linda McMahon, and she was confirmed. So she is the secretary for the Department of Ed. Number two, it was announced last week that the administration seeks to hasten, right, the employment roles or the staff for the Department of Education. Currently, it's estimated to be around 4,000 employees at the DOE, and they're looking to cut that down to about 2,000. Okay. Third, their plan is basically like a gradual phasing out of the department. So that's what they're still looking to move forward with. So instead of it just shutting down abruptly, they're looking to kind of phase this out and over time. So that's what they're communicating and signaling, to the public. Uh, that was three. Fourth, they are being sued. Right. Currently, there are 20 plus states, and that number is growing, that are suing the administration over the potential changes to the Department of Education in regards to the layoffs and things of that nature. Uh, the gist of their rationale for suing is basically that um, the DOE and the federal government is not living up to their end of the bargain. That is going to put undue stress and strain on resources for individual states. That children and students of all ilk, because remember this affects all students from pre-K all the way up to college, university, vocational trade, and career and technical. That everybody is basically going to be impacted, and it's putting the states in a very untenable situation, right? A predicament. So as such, they are bringing suit against the federal government. Okay. Um, and the last thing, the fifth thing that I can update everyone on is the fact that currently a number of the repayment options that the DOE has offered for years now, they're currently suspended, right? So this is in regards to student loans. So if you are looking to borrow you may find yourself in a position where you may not be able to. If you are looking to take advantage of one of the like income driven repayment options, like the save option or income-based repayments and things of that nature. The Trump administration has frozen that at this time. All right. All right. So that's a lot that's happened, like just in a what about a good 10-day span, but here we are. So let me go through my recommendations and actionable steps, right? With from the perspective of what we now know that's happening with the DOE and how it can potentially impact us. And just so you know, this is going to be in regards to adult learners and post secondary education of all stripes. It doesn't matter if you're on the vocational, career, technical, and trade side of the house or the college and university side. Post secondary education, and all of that will comprise, all of that and those types of learning opportunities comprise post secondary ed. So, and always it will be impacted. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so let me start with the very first recommendation or actionable step, which is for you to reach out to your state's Board of Higher Education. Every state has a couple of these agencies. Every state, for the most part, has a Board of Education, which oversees secondary or high school, elementary, pre-K, that sort of thing in the state. They also have a Board of Higher Education that oversees all post-secondary institutions and all post-secondary learning. Again, it doesn't matter if you're on the academic side of the house or the career technical vocational trade side of the house. All of it is post-secondary, and the Board of Higher Ed in your state oversees it. Policies, legislation, resources, right? I can name of several things. So I'm going to go through these bullet points and then I'll talk a little bit about it. So you can reach out to the Board of Higher Ed. They provide information on all of post secondary ed in your state. They can answer questions, right? This is a very, um, it's a lot of uncertainty about what is going to look like or how, potentially we would all be impacted by these changes at the DOE. So you can reach out to your state's Board of Higher Ed to figure out or to get more information about how your state is prepared for this, how they are looking to handle this, so forth and so on, right? The Board of Higher Ed in your state provide resources for prospective and current students. Doesn't matter if you are currently attending at an institution or you're thinking of it, they do have many resources for you. They also, which I think is very valuable, they maintain a list of basically active post secondary institutions in the state. And again, this goes for all types of learning. Okay. If those institutions are active and basically like in good standing, then all that information you can get from the Board of Higher Ed. If an institution is not in good standing, they can tell you that. If an institution may have been open but has been shuttered, the Board of Higher Ed is a great resource to get more information about it. I remember in the past I've uh, had students or refer students there and had students who knew to go there to get like old transcripts from colleges or institutions that are no longer operating, right? So your Board of Higher Ed has all of that information that maybe that's something that may apply to you, right? But they have, like I said, a plethora of different information and resources. They have data, statistics, and things like that. They can tell you about a lot of different things like funding opportunities and learning opportunities in your state. So they are a very valuable resource. Okay. Next, if you are like me and you are a student loan borrower, I have a hard time with that word. It's like I get tongue tied. Then I would recommend that you contact your loan servicer for assistance if needed at this time. Okay. If you are not a student loan borrower, but maybe you had plans to start school, start a program, and take loans out, I would say to still reach out. Here's the thing. Student loans are a lot like the FHA backed mortgage loans, right? The federal government basically, if you qualify, you qualify. They vouch for you, they loan the money, and then they assign you to a loan servicer, just like with mortgages, right? So the same thing happens with student loans. It could be a not-for-profit loan servicer. It could be a for-profit loan servicer, right? But bottom line is that they are there to support you through the duration of your time as a borrower, right? For the length of the life of your loan. So if you don't have loans, right, but maybe you're thinking about it, you can reach out to some. There are some that loan servicers that are very well known and established. Uh, have lots of resources as opposed to others. But if you're not, it's not as if you can't call to ask questions, right? Um, they can let you know what is happening, like up to the minute information as to what's happening. Um, because they need to be abreast of this. Like, and remember, they are working on the behalf of the federal government. So, for the most part, what the federal government knows is what they know. So, even if you're not a borrower, you can reach out to someone and just say, "Hey, you know what? I don't have loans, but I'm thinking of this, that, and the other. What may be some of the options, so forth and so on." And they can help with that. Now, if you are a borrower and you've been avoiding, the loan servicer, or you just did not know this information, let me kind of run down some bullet points here. Um, First of all, if your finances have changed, maybe you've experienced a job loss, maybe you are underemployed, okay, and you may still have the means and the ability to make payments, contact your loan servicer immediately. Let them know what your employment and financial status is for assistance, right? Um, Sometimes when you experience a job loss or a situation where you're underemployed, and you still are able to or would like to make payments, they can work with you, right? They can work with you to maybe lower your monthly payment based on your current financial situation, and such and things like that. But they will be the ones to let you know what options are available to you. So reach out to them, right? Um, you can also ask about the different available repayment options. Now, I just mentioned that some of the income based repayment options have been suspended. So if you are a current loan holder, borrower like myself, then everything I have in place is pretty much still in place, right? But this suspension of these repayment options really impact new and future borrowers. So keep that in mind. Now, what I do remember and know of not all loan services, but some of the loan services is that there are a few repayment options that individual loan services may offer to their clients, right, to their customers, that may be independent of the federal government for the most part. It used to be when I was years ago, before we really had like something that was income based. The option for a lot of borrowers was to extend the repayment period on your loan. Uh, Typical loan repayment period is 10 years, right? But there were some loan servicers that would extend that out to 25 years, in effect, more than doubling the amount of time that you would pay the loan back, but lowering your monthly payment in the process. Okay. So you can ask directly, like, hey, what, repayment options are available to me? And they'll let you know what those are. Also, if you may have experienced a job loss, underemployment, medical issues, or whatever the case may be, and you are not in a position to make payments, then reach out to the loan servicer to ask about loan forbearance or loan deferment or any other option that's available. Loan forbearance and loan deferment are in effect very similar, right? They do the same thing. They pause payments for your student loans. When we were experiencing, all of the awfulness with the pandemic, everybody who had student loans that had federal, not private student loans, but federal student. Let me be clear about that. There is a distinction. Someone can have student loans, which are that can be private from like banks and different companies. Um, that's something totally different. That's a loan, just like any other loan product from a bank or like I said, from a loan finance company or things like that. But then there's also federal student loans, right? All of my student loans are federal. I don't have any private loans. So during the pandemic, what you kind of heard a lot of was from some people out there were dealing with job losses, underemployment, and things of that nature. And they were in a bit of a snag because they were private borrowers, right? They had student loans from private entities. And sometimes those entities were not offering, any options or payment pauses or anything like that, right? That's how they basically made their bread and butter. Now, if you had federal student loans, like I have, all of my loans are federal, and you had, for others who had that, we were given an administrative forbearance, right? It started under the first Trump administration. It continued on when Biden took office as president. So that administrative forbearance, basically, and that's what a forbearance does, it pauses the payments, right? It can go up now with the administrative forbearance. It can go for however long the administration states. For a typical forbearance, be it medical or financial or whatever the case may be, it goes into effect for up to 36 months or 3 years. Okay. During that time, however, your loans, right, the amount that you owe still accrues interest. The interest does not stop. The payments are paused, but the interest that the loans are accruing does not stop. Okay. That is forbearance. Now, the other option is a deferment, which pauses payments for the same period in time up to 36 months. The difference with the deferment, however, is that the loan amount, your balance that you owe, does not accrue interest. Okay. On deferment, your payments are paused, but you're not accruing interest on your total loan balance. Now, what typically happens is that when you reach out to your loan service provider, you ask and they tell you to apply, right? They want some information, they'll ask some questions, and then they will evaluate and then make a determination. You may call wanting one uh, option, right? And they can counter and say, well, based on your circumstances, it looks like you qualify for this instead. So they will let you know what you qualify for. They will let you know what needs to happen. And then if you do qualify and you take all the steps and everything is approved, then what will happen is that there will be a pause in your repayments. And depending on which option, either you will or will not be charged interest on your balance. Okay. But reach out to them for help. Now, I'm going to add this. I didn't include this here in my little outline, but I'm going to add this. And this is more of a personal perspective, right? If you are unable for whatever reason to not take advantage of a loan forbearance or deferment, if you cannot make payments and your student loan servicer does not have any options available to you, then try, and some people may say, well, this is not very sound advice. Yeah, I'm in my 50s now and I've lived long enough to have learned a lot of things. Sometimes when you just simply can't, you simply just can't. Okay. So if you are not able to make the payments, what you can do is let the loan servicer know, "Okay, you know what? I'm unfortunately at this time, I'm not able to make payments." They can record that, right? Let's note the account. That's fine. And then from there, that's it, right? Um, Naturally, they may reach out to you, right? Because they like they're not a collection agency per se, but they will, make an effort to collect. And as such, yes, you may get calls, you may get uh, mailings and things like that about your outstanding balance. But if your circumstances will not permit payment, then that is the answer. That is what's happening with you. So you need to just basically assert that often, um, because it's not much else that can happen. What to me, right, this is again my opinion, you're looking ahead to the time or the point in time when you can make payments, right? Because it does take some time to kind of cycle through this. It doesn't happen immediately, right? If you are not able to make payments, then there's not going to be repercussions immediately. However, I look at it more as like, self care, right? Like the rule of first responders, right? In order for a first responder to be successful helping others, they have to be safe and help themselves first, right? So help yourself first. If you aren't able to make the payments and you can just make it and survive, then do that, right? Because hopefully you'll get to a point in the future where you will be able to do more than just survive. You can thrive. You can resume payments because you can always resume those payments, right? They have different mechanisms in place to help you correct a loan default. Right, that's a topic for a different conversation. I'll talk about that in the future. But just know that if you cannot, okay, try to find a way to be okay with that, because that is, if that's the actuality and the reality of your circumstances, then accept it and find a way to move on. All right. I'm off my soapbox. Okay. Let me go on to the next recommendation, which is research alternative funding options. There may be those of you who are, like I said, again, currently in school, and you may be sweating a little bit, like, I'm worried. I understand. And there may be those of you who had a plan to start, and now you're thinking about maybe not because of everything that's happening. Again, this is me and my soapbox with my personal opinion, right? I believe that this is an excellent time to go back if you have not already. I really do. This is one of those eye of the storm type of situations where, yes, it is chaotic. Yes, it's a complete and total shit show. I completely agree. But somewhere in there, right, in this chaotic storm, there is this like center of peace, tranquility, right? um, to me, this is a great time to go back because it can help draw your focus to something else, something uh, just as important as what's happening in our country, what's happening maybe at your kitchen table and your family, so forth, at work or whatever the case may be. Plus, you'll be doing something good for yourself. So it doesn't matter again what type of program you're looking to go into. If options are still open and available to you, I think this is a great time for you to research that and exercise those options. Right, start a program, start something. Um, and having said that, this is the reason why I'm like, yeah, this is a great time. And maybe, you may, it would behoove you to look for alternative funding options. What would they look like? What does that entail? That's things like scholarships. Scholarships really do exist, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. I promise you they do. There are a few actually websites that do a really great job of compiling data on different scholarships. FastWeb is one of the biggest and oldest. It's been around for pretty much the beginning of the internet almost. Like, so it's been like 30, 40 years almost of FastWeb. One of the newer ones that's really very well known, well received. It's a really great site. It's called myscholarly.com, right? Um, So My Scholarly does the same thing as FastWeb. They have a ton of information on different scholarship opportunities. When you hear people throw out like some staggering like figure and say, well, that, here in the United States, there's like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of scholarships, opportunities, and so forth and so on. That, for the most part, is true, right? I couldn't give you an exact number and I won't look it up, but just know that yes, scholarship opportunities can total in the hundreds of millions of dollars. um, One of the things I want to say just as a caveat about these sites, right? These sites do ask a lot of information, and that's the best way I can describe it. It's not like, um, oh God, I can't think of the word. It's not like identifying information like social security numbers and things like that, right? Um, they ask questions about you, the person, more than statistical information, like your birthdays and things like that. They do ask for that information, but not like social security numbers and things like that. They ask these very quirky questions, like, how tall are you? How much do you weigh? Are you left-handed or right-handed? Do you wear glasses? Right? And they let you know beforehand that the reason that they're asking all of these kind of like weird quirky questions, right, more like demographic information and information, like, again, about your personage, is that they take that information that you provide and they match you up to as many scholarship opportunities that they can, right? Because the nature of scholarships can be so ridiculously obscure and specific at the same time. Okay. Yes, there could, and this is just a hypothetical, but maybe you sign up and they ask you if you are a left-handed uh, woman who plays badminton. Why are they asking you that? Because They may have information on a scholarship opportunity for left-handed women that play badminton. It could be as obscure and specific as that. I've seen it with my own eyes, right? So because of this, they try to get a whole profile of you as a potential scholarship recipient, you as a student. And these scholarships are not just for the academic side of the house. They have scholarship, opportunities for the vocational, career, technical, and trade side of the house as well, right? So these sites are worth their weight in salt. Another good place for you to look also, and I didn't include this, are on the web pages of these institutions directly, right? Um, Often at a college or university or other types of programs as well, for like career and technical institutions as well. They typically have a section for financial aid and any scholarship opportunities that the institution has that they can kind of plug you into and make you aware of. You will find that information under the financial aid section of the website. Okay. All right. Moving on. State funding options, right? Just like I mentioned earlier about the Board of Higher Ed, yes, that's a great place to start because they can kind of put you into the pipeline for what possible state funding options are available. This could be state grants for education. It could be scholarship opportunities. Also, it could be information about promise programs. Promise programs. I don't. Every state I don't believe has a promise program, but for the states that do, they all kind of function the same way, but they are called something different. Bottom line is that a promise program is just that, right? Typically, you have high school students who, if they agree to certain guidelines and specific um, like parameters and options. Like so, um, you may agree as a high school junior, right, for the last 2 years of your high school career, if you agree to, maintain a 3.25 GPA, do X number of service learning hours, or play this sport, or do whatever, right, or take these combination of courses, whatever the criteria is. If you agree to perform these steps and these functions, then the promise is that you will get guaranteed admission to a particular institution, and typically you will get like a full ride, right? For we'll pay for all 4 years, or we'll pay for all 2 years at a community college, right? So those are promise programs. I say look into them because I don't know if I know, like I said, that there are some states that do have them and some states that don't, but I do not know what the criteria are, maybe or is from state to state. Maybe they have some options for older learners, that are not in high school. So you may want to check it out. One of the other great funding options statewide is the WIA program, or Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, right? So WIA, if you have never heard of it, is typically, now WIA I know is in every state, and it typically goes by a different name in every state. But no matter what it's called, if it's a WIA program, then they all function the same. So if you have maybe heard of things like getting retrained, right? Like workforce development, uh, workforce training or retraining. Maybe you lost a job or were laid off from a job and they're directing you to these retraining programs. Typically, that's WIA, right? And it falls under this act that is legislation here in the United States. It's a great program. I have worked with students in the past who have come through WIA programs. I mentioned this in the video last week. I did work with a student who started, who actually changed careers, right? They had a job and unfortunately they lost the job and they went through a WIA program. They did some IT training, picked up a couple of IT certifications and was able to get a job in IT, was doing really well, and then ultimately went back to school, so that they can, progress further in their career. Great stuff. But WIA help with that, and WIA does not just pay for like workplace training. It's not just um, career, technical, vocational, and trade. It can also very much be academic as well. Some of the opportunities that they provide, typically for free. Okay, so WIA is a great place to look as well. Lastly, Alternative funding options, tuition reimbursement, right? Plain old, good old tuition reimbursement. Um, Everybody doesn't have that. Like a lot of every business or company or organization does not offer tuition reimbursement, but it happens, right? Often enough. Uh, you can always find out what the criteria for your organization's tuition reimbursement benefit by talking to HR, right? Typically, these things are also structured very similarly, no matter where you're working and if you have that benefit. You are given X number of dollars towards your education expenses. Typically, what you're studying needs to align with your role at that organization or institution. And typically, once you're done, that successfully complete whatever the learning opportunity is, be it a credential, or like a certification or a degree program or whatever the case, then usually in exchange, you're going to give your organization X number of years of service, right? Now, if you decide to part from the organization before that time, right, then you may be required to pay back what was provided to you. Okay. So you don't have to pay for this out of your pocket. You will pay for it with your time and your labor. Okay. All right. So tuition reimbursement. There may be other funding options. Maybe you know someone that can afford to pay for you. Maybe you got savings and things like that. But for those of us, who may not have those opportunities or options, these are things that you may want to consider. All right. So now moving on, you can investigate free and low cost options. There are just a gaggle of free online content, legit and good free online content. I have to say website, this channel, Adult Learner Lounge. This is a great free online option for you. I'm here to help, right? So that's a shameless plug again from me and for my channel. But then there are also things out there that are much more established than me online. You still have MOOCs. MOOCs is an acronym for Massive Open Online Course. It was all the rage, or they were all the rage about 10 or 15 years ago. And every type of institution, excuse me, from Ivy League on down offered some version of a MOOC, right? It was great. So you may want to look into that. MOOCs had really evolved towards the end, where uh, some companies were kind of uh, basically they were grouping, right, different MOOCs together, and people could earn like a micro credential. You can earn a certification from completing some of these courses. Uh, Typically, how that was structured is that the course itself may have been free to the public, but you may have to like sit for some type of an exam, and that was a cost, and you may have to pay for that credential. That was another cost. So it was something that was nominal compared to actual like tuition at at a college or a trade school or something like that. But still, it was very very compelling, and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So MOOCs should still be, excuse me, an option. You also have free courses, right? I was working with a student looking up different, like, well, we were looking for math courses, and I came across this community college. I want to say again, it was someplace like in West Virginia or something like that, where they basically made all of their remedial slash developmental courses free online, which was brilliantly smart because it gave the public an opportunity to, to study, to learn. It gave the public an opportunity to become, up close and personal with online learning management systems because these were online courses. But it also basically gave the institution, that college, like free publicity, right? It's a great way to bring people in, right? So that maybe they could become actual students and not just like students at large. It was great, but you can find something like that out there on the internet. There are like scads of free textbooks and things like that. Then you also have online options like Khan's Academy. They're still going strong. I just got an email to remind me that it's been a while since I've like logged into Khan's Academy. It has been, but Khan's Academy, basically got their start on YouTube, right? YouTube, we call it YouTube University for a reason, and TikTok, we call it TikTok University for a reason. So all of these free online options are great. Then we can move on to great low cost options. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about them, but two of the best low cost options that I know in this education space. Number one, it's testing, right? Um, so high schoolers have AP courses and AP tests. Older students, like college students, they have what's known as CLEP DSST tests. CLEP tests, DSST tests. There are a few other institutions that have a similar type of testing. Basically, these are tests of your existing knowledge, right? So let's say you're great in math and you are talking about going back to school and you think that, you know what, I think I could probably blow through an intro to math course. You can possibly capture that by taking a CLEP test. CLEP has or offers a college mathematics course for 3 credit hours. And for a nominal fee, typically it's somewhere between $100 and $150, you can sit and take this test, not online, but you would have to take it at a testing center, which is part of that nominal fee. And if you are strong in math and you pass the test, then that test is proof of your math ability. You could take it to an institution, right, and say, hey, I have a successful CLEP exam for college mathematics. And that institution will say, great, let's have that transcript because we will give you those credit hours as if you took that class. Okay. So again, I'm not getting ready to go into a lot of discussion right now about CLEP and DSST because it's a lot of information. It's very detailed and involved. It warrants its own video, and I will be talking about that and making those videos in the near future. Okay, but I just wanted to put it out there. You can research it, and if you want, if you had questions about it, you can always get in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions and talk more about it. Now, that's testing that's available. Another option that's very low cost is credit for prior learning, right, or CPL. There's a wonderful organization out there called the American Council on Education, or ACE, and they maintain a massive registry of trainings and testing that they have evaluated, the ACE. The ACE has been around for decades. Um, Basically, it kind of got its start, even I think before World War II, right? And its initial purpose was to evaluate the training, right, for the military. Not all branches of the military, not all branches, but primarily for the Navy and Marines, which technically is one, but Navy's first, then Marines, and then the Army. The Air Force does something a little bit different, and so does the Coast Guard, right? But ACE has this massive registry of all the military trainings, all of your work orders, like MOSs and things like that, depending on what branch you served in. All of that information is there. You can then, if you have your DD 214 or if you have your joint services transcript, which actually the joint services transcript, I'll talk about that in the future too, has all that information on there already. But you can go and research your training against what's at the ACE registry because the ACE actually makes a college credit and a vocational college credit recommendation based on your training. What does that look like? Let's say that you were a welder in the Army. You can go to the ACE and see if the welding training has been evaluated for vocational credit. If it has, then you will see the number of credit hours, the number of vocational credit hours that the ACE recommends. Typically, when you go into a trade school, or some type of vocational uh, institution, if you've got that experience in that transcript, they're going to give you that credit. Hey, come on through. The same thing applies for college or academic credit as well. Often, I said there were two registries. The second registry is for the private sector, corporations, and also the federal government. So, for instance, I worked with a student in the past who was like an assistant manager or something like that at a McDonald's for some years. But the training that that individual had, that student had, was very extensive. McDonald's has paid the ACE, worked with them and paid a fee to have their training evaluated. And what the ACE determined was that if for some of these specific McDonald's trainings, yes, it was as rigorous as college courses. They made a credit recommendation, a college credit recommendation. That student was able to pay 25 or $30. They were able to first validate that they actually did receive the training. That's the first step. And then afterwards, once the ACE can say, okay, we can confirm that you did that, the student was able to order a transcript, an official transcript for those credit hours, those college credit hours, and transfer them into the university. And those credits were applied to the student's degree program. It is phenomenal shit. Typically, older students can make the best use of these low cost options. But again, I won't go into too many details. I will talk about it in a future video. Let's move on. Okay, so other recommendations. You may start or continue, or you can start or continue at community college. So let's say that you are currently attending, and again, we are racked with this uncertainty. Let's say that you have a ways to go. You may still have electives that you need to complete, maybe a couple of gen ed courses. um, you can talk to your advisor and find out, like, hey, I have this idea. Is it possible for me to, which typically it often is, can I take some of those courses over at the community college for less money, or maybe it might be more convenient, maybe more online options, or whatever the case may be. Can I take those courses there and then transfer them back? Typically, you can, right? There may be restrictions. Your advisor will let you know, but typically, when it comes to like elective credit hours and gen ed hours, yes, taking them at a different institution and transferring them back, you're more than welcome to do that. But check with an advisor first. And if you have not started, maybe you had your heart set on starting at a university, again, with these uncertain times, my recommendation is maybe consider or reconsider starting at the community college. Why? Because it's always going to be cheaper tuition and fees, right? If you have to, find ways to pay for this. They have a lot of great options, typically just as many as a university, right? So, and when it comes down to different subjects and disciplines and things like that, also a lot of community colleges are educating on both sides of the post-secondary house. They have academic programs, but they also have career, technical, vocational, and trade programs as well, right? It just depends on what they offer. Also, it's a good idea because, again, the credits that you earn are typically transferable, right? Some people go to the community college just to earn like a gen ed degree, which allows them to very easily transfer all of the gen eds over to a university program and continue right on. Okay, so community college can really kind of give you a good foothold on your academic dreams or your career, technical, vocational trade dreams, and really get you on your path on your educational journey. Okay. Next recommendation is an online degree program. Online degrees offer a lot of flexibility. You can attend, across states, so it doesn't matter where you are really in the world. If you can access the internet, there you go. Um, and often an online degree option is very cost effective, right? Meaning that um, it's not costing an institution any additional funds to educate someone online in different parts of the country or the world, right? Universities and colleges typically charge in-state and out-of-state rates, right? You're going to pay more if you live out of the state, if you live out of the district or whatever the case may be. But when it comes to online offerings, again, there's no electricity to pay the online option, not from the university's perspective. There's no gas bills to pay, no grounds workers and things like that, because those students are not really coming to campus to begin with. As such, those savings are passed on to you, the student. Often, what you are able to do with an online program, if you are attending from a state, you know, a different state from where the institution of the program is housed, is that they may say it's a discount, but really all they're doing is charging you the in-state tuition rate, right? This actually comes in handy and it kind of goes hand in hand with the next recommendation, which is to look at neighboring state institutions. Why? Because in this time of uncertainty, right? If what really will happen is that the DOE is shuttered, then the lion's share of what needs to happen on a daily basis to uphold our system of education will fall on those states first and foremost, right? And as such, every state will not function at the same caliber, right? So you will have inequities, you will have disparities. Some states are going to be great at this, others maybe not so much. So you want to have as many options as a student as possible. So if it's not happening in your state, look to other states, right? If it's not happening in your state, consider online degree programs because you know that you can maybe get into a good program at a good institution in a different state. If it's not working in your state, for the same money as someone that's in state, right? Also, neighboring state institutions can provide what we call reciprocity, right? So if there are tuition reciprocity agreements in place, meaning that state A has reciprocity with state B and vice versa, meaning that any student from state A that takes that attends institutions or universities or colleges or whatever the case in state B, they're going to charge them the in-state rate and vice versa. I live in Illinois. We can take courses at some institutions in Indiana and get the Indiana state rate. Indiana students can do the same thing for certain institutions in Illinois. We have tuition reciprocity agreements. Sometimes, even on top of that, or in lieu of that, then depending on the state and the institution, they also can offer a discount, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you may be charged in-state rates. It could be a true discount to say, well, you know what, we don't really have reciprocity, but if you live in this state, then we can offer you a 25% discount on tuition, right? So discounts can really help keep your costs down, right? But that recommendation, like I said, kind of goes hand in hand, like with the whole online degree program in my mind. But that's something that I want you to, just to be considering and to think about. Because, like I said, all states, when it comes to education, are not created equal, right? Um, and it's not like you can't find. I'm sure, if you are flexible, you probably can get what you need in your state. But I don't like when we are overwhelmed with options, but I don't like when we don't have enough, right? I feel like people get desperate and cagey when we lack options. So, yes, these recommendations are really just designed to kind of put as many things, options that I could think of out there for you so that you can still be successful during these times of uncertainty. Yes, you can still start even during these times of uncertainty. Okay? So, I hope this was helpful. I try to keep this under an hour and I'm coming in at 48 minutes. Yay. Um, but if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything, do not hesitate to hit me up. You can reach me by email at connect@adultlearnerlounge.com or just go into the comment section, leave me a message there as well. Um, if you've made it to the end of the video, thanks for hanging out. Do not forget to like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. But that's it. That's it. I'm going to end this video. I came in again under an hour, and I'm happy about that. That's great. But just remember, we're lifelong learners. Okay, so that means we never stop learning. Don't forget, we never ever stop learning. All right, you all take care. Bye.